Hey, what's up everybody? Radix here, the one from 72, the ultra neutral, and today I am here with...
Hey everybody, it's 1010 the Navigator.
Yes, 1010 the Navigator. So today is a very special day. It is the perfect balanced day of the entire year, every year. It doesn't matter what day, whatever you want to choose as far as a day and you want to say there's a perfect balance, this day is the most balanced day of the year because it is October 10th, 10-10, which is perfect balance. No, 4 and 4 is not perfect balance, and 8 and 8 is not perfect balance, but the number 10 and 10 is the perfect balance number. And the reason why I say that is because you have a 1 and a 0 in the number 10. So you have the 1 to 0, which 0 is the emptiness of nothing, and the number 1 is of something. So if you have 0, you have nothing. But if I give you something, you have 1. If I give you one thing, now you have something. So the number itself, just the number itself, 10, is a number of balance, the number of emptiness, and a number of having something, I guess. Is that what possessing something? What would you say, 1010?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like when it comes to the number 10, it's really important as far as like balance, and when it comes to scales, that was something typical. Everybody counts from 1 to 10. And
also, if you look at the fact that even, and I know 1010's probably not going to like this part of it, but if you look, there she's like, okay. So if you look at what is a computer, what does it read? It reads ones and zeros, right? 1 and 0, 1 and 0. That's the only code that a computer reads, which is the number 10, 1 and 0. So the number 10 is a huge significance. Even if we are in a simulation, then the simulation is ran off of 1 and 0. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that you're born in the year 1982 and how you're born on the month October 10th, 1010. So let's go through your whole numbers.
Okay. So, yes, my birthday is October 10th, which is 1010. And 19, if you take 1 plus 9, it equals 10. And if you take 8 plus 2, it equals 10. So it's 10, 10, 10, 10. So it's all perfectly formulated to equal the number 10.
Let's talk about how powerful that is, actually. I don't want to cut you off, but let's talk about, I want people to get the gravity of how powerful that is, because it is the perfect time through the entire time scale in a 100-year time scale is the year 1982 with 1010. It's a perfect alignment of 100% balance. Like that day is the balanced day of the entire 100-year scale. It's a perfect balanced day because it's 1982 10 10 10 10 10 10 10. It's like all balance.
Yes, and I was born 10 pounds.
Were you?
I was.
Oh my gosh, you are a big woman too, and I don't mean big as in everybody knows that you're not a large heavy set woman, but you're like an Amazon for real. Like literally, I know because I've been next to you, and you can intimidate men, and you probably have intimidated men throughout your life, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not trying to pick a fight with anybody or trying to make someone feel intimidated or like, I'm not trying to be superior over anyone, but I've had comments made because I'm so tall. And I'm abnormally strong for a female. I would do a lot of things that normal females wouldn't do. Like I used to help my dad a lot. We would cut down trees, and I built a fence with him and built tables and all kinds of stuff. And I was never afraid of like working hard or carrying heavy stuff. I would be like, yeah, give it to me. It would be a challenge. Was born quite a large little baby.
You're born 10 pounds. That's incredible. And when because your structure isn't that you're just a tall, skinny, bony girl. You're actually a tall, healthy, Amazon type build woman. I mean, if you really were to, like, I know you're in the gym and you're working out and you're married to somebody who is a coach, right? He's a fitness coach, isn't
Yeah,
he?
he's a strength trainer. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, he's worked with me quite a bit on like gaining or helping me harness my strength. And he's not intimidated by that in any way. So he finds it to be quite fascinating
And
that I can do.
Yeah, I've been in the bodybuilding world for a very long time too, and women like you that are just gifted. Like if you really was to really harness it, like you could be like Miss America or whatever, Miss Olympia because of your size. If you really really were after it, you have that structure, you have that build for that. But that what I wanted to say is that as coming up, through your childhood and going in, into school and stuff like that, you were bigger than most of the girls. So they must have kind of looked at you as like somebody of an authority just because of your size. Like you were much larger than they were. Was it like that or no?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They would always make mention, why you're so tall and big, and there would be an intimidation factor. But when I played sports, there were a lot of girls that were taller than me, but they were still intimidated by me. You've met me in person, Radek, and my demeanor is very laid back. I don't push myself on anybody. I don't if people think I'm trying to be authoritative, it's not that. It's just something that naturally comes. I don't require people to be submissive to me in any way. But when I was going through high school and middle school, I was made the captain of the basketball and volleyball teams. I was put in positions of power, just because I was able to keep myself balanced, and also I had this authoritative, persona, I guess, that people saw as being intimidating. And I did use that to my advantage. But growing up, it was difficult because, if you're outside of the norm, people look at you differently and they treat you differently. So there was a part of me that had to learn how to accept, myself, because, it's not every day that I would see a girl that looked like me. So, and in this society, there are certain expectations that a woman is supposed to look this way and be this way. And I don't know, for the past, 20 years or so, well, no, not 20 years. Yeah, about 20 years, I've been able to look past all that and say, this is who I am. And I like it. I don't want to be like everybody else like that. I'm my own person, and I'm not going to be, you can't shove me in a box because I won't fit.
You do keep really good balance, and I think that that's really where it comes from, because you used your size and authority where it mattered, but you also didn't use it, you didn't abuse it, as in here, and that's that balance that you keep. You're a very, and I'm not saying this because we already know that there's definitely something very bizarre and unique about myself, but there's also something very bizarre and unique about you. And I've never really met anybody as bizarre and unique as I am. Which is just strange. And the fact that I'm a Scorpio, and how Scorpio and Libra, like you brought up earlier, that the Scorpio's claws lean on the scale.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the Scorpio's claws are the Libra scales.
Yeah,
and so can't have one without the other.
Yeah, it is very, very weird. But yeah, so let's go back to your family. So with your father, right? Like you were very, very, your father was extremely important to you, isn't that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I spent a lot of time with my dad. My mom was a nurse, so she worked a lot of hours, and my dad had, he worked a job, like a physical labor job, and he spent a lot of time caring for my sister and I, because we were the youngest and the two that were left at the house. And I used to just sit in his workshop, which was the garage, and watch him do projects or whatever, and he would teach me things that I don't feel like every dad would teach their daughters necessarily, but I appreciated that about him, because he always felt it was really important that I learned how to do things for myself and to be able to take care of myself in a good, balanced way. Like there were certain things that I would need him to help me with. And then there were times when he was like, I taught you how to do this. You got to do it yourself, because you're growing up and I'm not always going to be around. And like I remember the one day he was building a fence in the backyard, and I think I was probably 10. Come to think of it.
10.
And
10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10.
yeah. So even at 10, I was probably like 5'7" or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even know. But I went back there because he was working really hard. And like my dad he's like 6'3", and he's a big guy. And he wasn't like tall and skinny. He's like big, and that's probably where I get a lot of my physical features from. And I went back there, and I saw him by himself, and I was like, well, somebody's got to help Dad. And so I went back there, and I was like, Dad, can I help you? And he looked at me. This was the beginning of all that. And he was like, yes. And he just would tell me to go get the lumber and bring it up the hill. We had like an acre property, so coming down from the garage to the top of the hill, the back of the acre, and it was kind of steep a little bit, but he knew that I could do it. And if you think about fencing in a whole acre, I don't even know how many boards that was, but it was a lot. And in that moment, we were able to connect with each other even on a deeper level than like he and my other sister ever did, because I always was like, I don't know, in a weird way, it was like I wanted to like keep him safe, but I knew he was strong enough to do it, but like I wanted to help take care of him too. So I really appreciate it about my dad. He never would stop me and say, oh, you're a girl, you can't do that. He never would. He would let me, and which I appreciated that about him a lot.
And so let's talk about the balance now with your mother, right? Like,
yes.
Your mother was different, right?
Yeah, she was different. She was like, she was a nurse. She was actually a Taurus, which is, if you follow the zodiac signs, Libra and Taurus are associated with the planet Venus. And my mom's middle name was Eileen, which she was given in 1942. And my mom, a lot of times, I love her. I still do, very much. And she was opposite of my dad. Like, she taught me how to cook, and I learned how to clean very well from her and, like, manage a household. I learned how to work hard, like, using my mind when it came to her, because she was very focused and very determined. And she would tell me, she's like, I'm not always the smartest, but I'm going to be the most determined to learn why. And I always appreciated that about her, and I try to approach life like that too. So my mom was always very good, like, with speaking and reading. My dad, he wasn't. He was more of like hands-on, let's do this, I'm going to, like, he was very smart too, but he was more of like, he could draw. Like, he used to, the engineers draw pictures and stuff. He drew pictures of our house. And, like, when he'd want to do projects, like, he'd map it out. He knew math. That's how I, am so good with numbers and stuff and measuring and things like that. He taught me those things. Just both sides, too, kept me balanced, with how they approached life. They were very different from each other, and that was a good thing. So it gave me two opposite ends of the spectrum on what love is and, compatibility also in a relationship.
So I want to talk about the, while we're still on your parents, and I said I was going to hit you with a question that you didn't know that I was going to bring up. When I look at the Libra, right? When we look at the picture of a Libra, it's always this big, powerful woman, right? That's the sign of the Libra. It's a powerful woman. It's not a man. It's not an animal. It's a woman. It literally is a woman holding the scales. And that woman has a blindfold on, right? So she doesn't, she doesn't use her eyes really to see.
No.
She can see, without her eyes. So we're going to talk about the fact that you're a natural remote viewer, but while we're still on your parents, this is the question I wanted to talk about, was your parents were very, very important to you. And
Yes.
you actually were there to see the life leave their eyes, for their eyes to
Yes.
go from the light and then for that to fade completely out. And most people never get to see that, but you got to see both your parents. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So a lot of people have their misconceptions when it comes to death, and it can be very scary and a very sad process. Like, I was really sad for a long time after my parents died, and I still get sad. But my dad passed away from cancer, and his suffering finally ended. But that day, my brother came from out of town, and I was there with my son at the house. And my mom and my sisters went to the grocery store. And so my brother came in the room where I was, because I was trying to put my son down for a nap, and he said, Dad, he's dying. And my brother is in the medical field, and so we were both there with my dad while he was taking his last breath. And, and maybe I'm just a little weird, but I always wanted to be there with them, in their final, the final breath, for him in particular. And there's nothing you can do about it, when it's happening. But to see the relief from the pain, it was like a really beautiful process. And for me, it was closure, like I didn't have to worry about, I wasn't there. There's nothing I could have done. I just was there, holding him and holding his hand, as his body was, grasping for air, and he wasn't able to breathe any longer. I was doing my best to make it comfortable, even though it doesn't help. I think it was more for me than it was for him. And then when it came to my mother's passing, I was coming up to see her at the hospital, and I got a call, which I knew right away that something had happened. So I rushed up to the room where she was, and my mother was coded. She was laying on the bed, and the nurse was over top of her, and she wasn't breathing. She wasn't alive. So they brought her back around, because my sister is power of attorney. I wouldn't have done that, but it's the past. It doesn't matter anymore. But they resuscitated her. It was different. Like, she was different than when she was. I don't know how to explain it. It's like it was just her body was working. She wasn't there. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I got to see her take her final breath also. And that one was a lot more traumatic, because I wasn't necessarily expecting that to happen, before. I thought my mom would last, for a few more years, and she passed away, I think about 3 months after my dad did, and it was from a heart attack. So I always say that my mom, died of a broken heart. It's kind of silly, but my parents were inseparable.
So let's talk about that balance there, because that's one of the things, and this story may be kind of hard for some people who are sitting there listening to this, like, wow, their heart's probably going out. But let's talk about that balance, because your parents were there to see you born, right? They saw the life go into you, and they saw the light in your eyes for the first time, and the first thing you saw was the light in your eyes is in theirs, right? Like, that was how you came into the world. And you were there to see them leave this world. I can't find a more perfect balance of a life scale, by with that. And it wasn't that you were a child when it happened. You were an adult, so you were already well aware. You were a child when you were born. You saw the life come. They saw the life coming in you, and then as you're an adult, you saw the life leave them. That's really amazing.
Yeah, it was actually October 2016 when my dad passed, and then it was February 2017 when my mom passed. And yeah, I don't know many people that get to experience that when it comes to their both parents or at all. But I was very much like, if they were still alive, I probably would be living in their house. That's the kind of person I am. But it's my own personal problem. But that's how much I love my parents. And they'd be like trying to get rid of me, and I'm like, nope.
So now let's talk about the other aspects. So when I look at the Libra, I look at the strong woman who's holding the scale, who's holding the sword. She always has a sword in her hand as well as the scale. And that sword is like that powerful, like that kind of symbolizes power. But we're going to get back to that. Let's talk again about the fact that her eyes are always blindfolded, which everybody says blind justice and stuff like that. Yeah, we get that. But also, it has more symbolism to it, especially for you, because you did not go out and look to become a remote viewer. You did not go out and you weren't really into that stuff at all, were you?
No, because I look at it as an invasion of someone's personal privacy and space. That's how I look at it. And like, there are certain things that I was always able to do, but it would come naturally. Like, there was that one time when you texted me and you were like, guess where I am? And I was trying to like guess, and so then I concentrated hard enough because you gave me permission to guess where you were. And
yeah, I told you to empty yourself. I said just empty. Don't think about it. Just empty. So do you? And I don't want to cut you off, but do you remember when we were in Utah and I said, "You're the navigator. Find the way in." I found the portal. Now you find the way in. And what made you go, "Oh, I'm gonna look for the Alcor star"? What was that?
It was just like a knowing. It was just like, well, I need to find the star on this, portal, and then that will confirm that this is the actual portal.
Because we didn't talk about that before. We never talked about looking for the Alcor star anywhere in that area.
No, we didn't. We never did, because we were just like, the stars are in the sky, right? I mean, that's a silly way to look at it, but that's, probably a common consensus for people. You're just like, stars are in the sky. Why would they be on a portal or on a wall or a door or whatever? But they are. And it is a map to a destination, and we just have to figure out how to open these portals.
Yeah, that's the thing, guys. Like when I call her the navigators, because she's always been, like, if you listened to earlier, she said that her father was into maps, and so she was very into maps too. And so, and that was the reason. And on your arm, you have a freckles that line up with the Big Dipper, which is in the Bear constellation. And I don't want to make this about myself, but that when we were there that day, that was the first time that I really knew my telepathy actually worked with animals, because remember, I was up on a thing and I thought it was a cat, but it was actually a bear that was in the cave.
Yeah.
And the Alcor star is in the Bear constellation, and I said, this cat is telling me that I'm looking in the wrong place. Remember I said that? And so I came down off the little mountainside there, and I went back to the cave in, and I said, this is not the way in. This is not the portal. This is not the way in. And then I walked back out and I looked at that big old stone, and I said, oh my God, this is it. And then the very next day when we went back to confirm, to try to get that portal to open, I looked at you and I said, 1010, you're the navigator, find a way in. And you automatically, like that, just pulled your phone up and just went right to this star map that we've never used before. We just learned about the night before.
No.
And you found the Alcor star.
I did. Well, I wanted to mention earlier that in the beginning, when we first went out there to that area, you touched that stone, and then you passed by it and went up the hill to go down into the cave. So, like, you already knew intrinsically that was the portal, but you just never, like, use, I don't know what happened, but sometimes like our initial response to something is exactly what it actually is, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, everybody walks past that stone. You have to walk
uh-huh.
around this massive stone to get to the cave, and everybody just walks past it, and that ended up being, we confirmed that that's actually the portal.
Yeah,
So
and now,
go ahead.
sorry, now it's grayed out by the government. You can't see it on the maps anymore. On public record, it's owned by the U.S. government, so good luck trying to look it up over there. You won't be able to see it.
Yet nobody listens to our stuff and really puts any stock into it, but here we have all this evidence and proof, and nobody really cares. It's just, but whatever. Anyhow, so what I'm saying is that when the other day, or a couple weeks ago, when I said, hey, guess where I'm at, you were like making little guesses, and I was like, no, just empty yourself. And when you emptied yourself, you gave me all types of, say exactly what it was that you said.
So I did empty myself. I couldn't see any. Well, I did see something. So the first thing I saw was your shoes. Like you were doing something to your shoes, or you were like bent over doing something to your shoes. And I heard the phones ringing, but these are like office phones. And I also heard the song, Girl, I Want to Make You Sweat. So I was like, can I call you? And the moment that I called you, I was like, oh my God, you're in the hospital.
Yep.
And you're like, I'm in a doctor's office. Yeah, close enough.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Just before that, you were talking to the nurse, telling her that you were sweaty from going to the gym. So, you know, some people might be like, oh, well, how does that work? But I heard the word sweat, so it made me think of the song. And I was like, what are you listening to?
So yeah, let me tell it. So here's what happened.
Okay.
When I was asking her that, I just got done tying my shoe because my shoe was untied. The nurse came in and was checking my blood pressure, and she said, oh, your blood pressure's up a little high. And I said, well, I just came back from the gym, so I'm sweaty, and my blood rate's probably up. And she goes, oh, okay, it makes sense. And then you say, oh, you're in the hospital. I said, I'm in the doctor's office. And then you told me all that stuff. And I said, well, yeah, I just got done tying my shoe. And yes, I just told the nurse that I was sweaty and my heart rate was up because I just left the gym, which was all true. This all really happened. And so, yeah, you remote viewed then.
Yeah. Yeah, so the thing, I guess, with remote viewing or, you know, whatever it is, telepathy of some kind, like, sometimes it's a little bit, it's not as straightforward. You know, like, when you were out there in Chicago and you were in Chinatown and I got the image of that person following you, the person in the hoodie, but I said they had a baseball cap, but I noticed they were in their 30s and it was a male, you know, which you ended up seeing somebody out there that was in their 30s in a hoodie. I didn't know what the temperature was out there. I mean, it's hot here. I just assume most places they're hot too, but that's not the truth.
No, it was windy there. And I don't want to cut you off, but what you may not have noticed was if you watch that video when I'm talking and I'm saying it's the only building on that street with actually red pillars, and it has a ton of red pillars, those crimson pillars. And when I was walking by and I said the guy in the hoodie right there in the car, I didn't know that guy was there until as I was talking about it and explaining it, and boom, there's a guy in a hoodie. And if you didn't notice, right behind the car walks a guy with a hat with a baseball cap on. So go back and watch the video. So there's a guy with a baseball cap on, and then there's a guy with a hoodie sitting in the car, and they both were looking at me as I walked by.
Yeah. Wow.
And you called that to the T.
But yeah, like if I were to do that, I would definitely have to work on it, because it was kind of weird, because also that image of that man came to my head like we were texting each other about, I don't even remember what we were texting each other about, probably 1972.
We were talking about the Draconian and the Draconian that there's the Draconians there in the area. Somewhere there, because a bunch of 172 stuff just kept popping up. Like there was the bus kept going by, it was 172. I parked in front of a place that was 172, and it was just so happened that's where I ended up being able to park at. And the Alcor star lined up on the gate for Chinatown with the Great Bear.
Yeah, that's what you were telling me about the gate. And you were telling me about the bus. And then I got this feeling or this thought, because I was like, hey, like, I started out with the preface of like, hey, no, you're a grown man and you can protect yourself, but like, there's this person that I see, this man in his late 30s with a baseball cap and a hoodie, and I think he might be following you. And that image just came to me, and it kind of made me feel a little bit concerned. And you're like, well, the Draconian's here, and I'm pretty sure I'm protected. I'm safe. And I'm like, okay. And then it was kind of like, well, is she here or he here? And I was like, I don't know. Let me see if I can try to find them. And I couldn't see them, but I could hear them breathing, and I didn't get to tell you this either. And I talked about the pillars, the red pillars. But when you were walking around the city looking, I could hear all the noise from the city. I could hear this man cursing out this person. And I had a sense of where, the Draconian was. But I couldn't they wouldn't show themselves to me, which I understand why. But I think the reason why I saw the man in his late 30s with the hoodie is because that was sent to me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's another thing too. That's another way to help debunk some of the, and I don't really want to get into the negative part, but that's another way to help debunk some of the people that say that they're remote viewers and saying that they're talking to aliens out in space that have telepathy. Like, if your telepathy is strong, you can completely block lower frequencies, lower brain frequencies, which would be humans, because if you're born into that, as an advanced species, and you've been surrounded by it your whole life, and then here we have this human species here who had to learn how to do it, or people actually who naturally have it, like you naturally have it, and then there's people who are trying to learn how to do it, and they're trying to just remote view these beings that are in it. And it's just like, come on, dude, and you said that just now, and that's one of the things that I've thought often, but I never brought that up to you. And you said that you could sense that the Draconian was there, but she would not let you see her.
Yeah, she wouldn't let me see her.
Yeah.
And she wanted me to, I feel like she wanted me to let you know that, even though she could have easily just let you know that. I don't understand why, but it's not for me to understand why. Just like when I saw you in the martial arts school, it's not for me to understand why that happened. It's just gonna happen.
Yeah, if you guys don't know the story about that, go back and watch the video, 1010 and the Draconian. It's on my channel. You can go and watch the video where she talks about her experience with the reptilian that brought her to the school to see the Draconian that was there unlocking my brain. And that's really how we started connecting. That was it. And it's just really bizarre. Your whole birth is 10. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And the fact that the Scorpio's claws are on the scale of the Libra because they're next to each other. It's really wild. It's like total fate, and it's something I don't like to believe in is fate. But I mean, these things are driving us to where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be doing.
It's true, because I remember, I had this drive to find somebody. And I remember I told you that. I was like, I'm supposed to find somebody. I don't know who I'm looking for. You know what I mean? There's millions of people who have channels on YouTube. I just kind of started, putting stuff out there. Well, I put one thing out there, and that was a mistake on that one channel that will remain nameless. But that's where I saw your comment about 1972. And I was like, huh. So I clicked on that. And then I started watching your videos, and then, I told you, because you're very open about listening to people's experiences, and we really didn't even put two and two together, but I agree. I feel like I don't really believe in fate. Things don't just happen. You have to make things happen, but it's kind of how many coincidences are there? How many synchronicities do we have to go through?
Yeah, and now it's it's weird because it's almost like we're family. It's like we're brother and sister and we found each other. Yeah. But that's another thing too. Because you see the powerful figure, the Libra, the woman, and you see that she has a blindfold on, and that's what you were doing. You're seeking and you're looking. It's just, and it's I don't know. It's really some people probably get creeped out by a lot of this stuff. Like they would call bullshit and say that there's no way that this woman was born 1982 on 1010 and that her numbers is 10 10 10 10 and she was born 10 pounds. They would just not really want to believe it. And I'm going to show my birth certificate. I'm going to block some things out, but I'm actually going to do a video and show my birth certificate, the fact that I was 8 pounds, 8 ounces, and being a Scorpio is the 8th sign on the thing. But, and it's just weird because you're 10 pounds and you were born on 10-10. And 19 is 1 and 9 is 10 and 8 and 2 is 10. It's just really wild. But the other thing about, you see this figure of this very powerful Libra woman, which is you, and you see that she holds the sword in her hand. You're not the one to back down from a fight, but also you won't go and look for a fight, which symbolizes also the blindfold. But the fact that you will hold the sword in your hand, if the fight comes to you, you're willing to fight.
Yes, I will. And I won't fight for just silly reasons like, oh, you looked at me sideways. I'm going to fight you now. No, like it has to be on some really... You really have to get on my bad side for me to lift that sword on you.
Yeah, so that shows that balance, again, with the blindfold and the sword, and then you're holding the scales. And this really symbolizes who you are. So last thing I want to talk about is music, right? Because your name is Eileen, right? And it wasn't that you got your mother's middle name, and she was born in 1942.
That's right. Her name was Lois Eileen.
Yeah, so your name is Eileen, which is bizarre because you are the lady of the scales, and the scales is if one side is not even, if it's not even, you'll lean from one side to the other. Is that correct?
That's correct. So I have to stay in balance, which is kind of weird, like why they would name me Eileen. But Eileen wasn't a particularly popular name either. Like it's a very old-fashioned name, and going back to your point too, like the song "Come On Eileen" came out in 1982. A few 3 months before I was born or something like that. So, some people would say, well, your parents named you that because of the song. No, they named that because that was my mom's middle name, and she wanted me to have her middle name. So it just happened to be that I was born 10/10/1982, Eileen, with the song "Come On Eileen."
Which is funny because, the song came out in the year that is a 10-10 year, right? Because you have 1 and 9 is 10 and 8 and 2 is 10. The last thing I want to bring up is the song Ebony and Ivory, right? And that song also came out in the year 1982, right? A year that is a 10-10 year, a perfect balanced year. And that song is about balance. In fact, that's what they talk about, that the ebony and the ivory keys on the piano, the black and the white, are perfect balance, perfect harmony.
Yep. Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney, right?
Yeah. That's just wild.
Right?
Because I'm biracial too, which is also very weird because I'm, black and white. And
you are.
Yeah, I'm the ebony and ivory, and here you are, the lady of the scales. The song Ebony and Ivory, which talks about perfect balance, came out in the year 1982. The year that is a 1010, would you be in 1010, being in simulation. There's the most iconic movie of being in a simulation, the first most iconic simulation movie about going into a video game, going into a simulation, was the movie Tron, and it came out in the year 1982, which was 10 years, 10, before video games were created in 1972. That's just...
bizarre.
It's bizarre. It's definitely bizarre. I just can't even... it leaves me speechless because I never met anybody with that much perfect alignment in birth and number. It's always something is off, and nothing is off with you. It's perfect across the board for balance.
Yes, balance is important. As the lady of the scales,
The lady of the scales. All right, 1010. With that, was definitely an interesting interview, and hopefully we can do it again. And if you guys haven't been over to 1010's channel, please go over to her channel. She talks more about religious things and stuff like that. I don't really talk about that as much on my channel. If you're listening to this interview on her channel, you can come over to my channel. I talk more about 1972 and a time hack and things like that. My channel is radx172. And 1010, do you want to give them your channel?
Yes, it's 1010 the Navigator.
1010 the Navigator. All right, 1010 and everybody else, with that, enjoy the rest of the time that you have left.